Hi, Andrew. So this question is a really common question that a lot of people have trouble with. So it is not a silly question to be struggling with. So let's go through it. It's really tricky. Okay, so here's the question. It says factor completely q to the 6th minus q to the 5th minus q cubed plus q to the 4th, okay? So the directions are so important. When the directions are telling you to factor, that means that your answer should be in the form of factor times factor, and your GCF will be one of those factors. So when you are done with this problem, it's really important for you to make sure that your answer looks like this, factor times factor, okay? So whenever you're asked to factor, the very first thing I like to do is make sure it's in descending order. So this happens not to be. So descending order means highest degree to lowest degree, right? So here we have q to the 6th minus q to the 5th minus q cubed plus q to the 4th. That's not highest degree to lowest degree. It goes 6, 5, 3, 4. So I always put in descending order, so it goes 6, 5, 4, 3. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Once you've done that, you should whenever you're asked to factor, the first question you're asking yourself is there an overall GCF? Okay? And yeah, there is. The overall GCF here is q cubed, okay? Because all of these terms, the biggest thing they all share is a q cubed, okay? So that is going to be our first factor, all right? Remember, we're putting things in the form of factor times factor. So when I write this factorization at the end, that's going to be my first factor, okay? Now that I've found my GCF, I have to factor it out, which just means divide every term in the polynomial by the GCF. When you're factoring something out, you're just dividing by it. So here's my original polynomial, q to the 6th minus q to the 5th plus q to the 4th minus q cubed. And each term I'm going to divide by the GCF. So each of those terms is going to be divided by q cubed. Okay, so q to the 6th divided by q cubed, that gives me q cubed. Q to the 5th divided by q cubed, that gives me q squared, and I can't forget that negative sign. Q to the 4th divided by q cubed, that gives me just q. And then q cubed divided by q cubed, that's 1. And again, I can't forget that negative sign. So once I've factored out my GCF, I'm left with this factor in blue, q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1. So now take notice that this is our second factor, okay? So when we go to write this as factor times factor, because remember, we have to always write our answer in the form of factor times factor, this is what we have for our factorization. Q cubed is our first factor, and then our second factor is q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1. When you're factoring something, when you think you're done, you should always ask yourself, can I factor this any further? It's a good habit to start getting into now. So when you think you're done, always say to yourself, am I done? Am I really done? Can I factor this any further? And the thing is, you can. You can factor this further. There are 4 terms in the second factor. And we know how to factor something that has 4 terms. We use factor by grouping, okay? So when we're looking at our factorization, q cubed times q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1, we look at that second term in blue, q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1, and we count 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 terms there. I can factor that even further using factor by grouping. So now I need to sort of ignore that first GCF in red, the q cubed, and I need to just zoom in on that blue factor, q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1, and I need to use factor by grouping on just that factor. So I'm going to use factor by grouping to factor q cubed minus q squared plus q minus 1, which means I'm going to split it down the middle, and I'm going to find a GCF and factor the left side, q cubed minus q squared. I'm going to ignore the right side, and I'm going to find a GCF and factor the left. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to ignore the left side, I'm going to cover it up, and I'm going to find a GCF and factor the right side. Now, here's a hint. When you look at that right side where it just says q minus 1, well, there's really no GCF you can pull out of there, so your GCF on that side is just 1, which means you're just going to be left with q minus 1. So I'm going to let you finish this on your own, okay? Use factor by grouping, and then when you are done, do not forget to include your original GCF of q cubed as one of your factors. So when you're done with this problem, when you have fully factored this, you're actually going to have 3 factors in your answer. And it will look something like this. That original GCF of q cubed that you pulled back out way at the beginning, that's going to be your first factor. And then once you use factor by grouping to factor what we have here in blue, you're going to get 2 factors from that. So your final factorization will start with q cubed, and then you're going to have 2 other factors. So you're going to have 3 factors in your answer. If you have trouble finishing this problem, let me know. I'm happy to help, okay? But please, please, this is a very, very tricky one. So I'm really happy you asked about it. This is definitely a tricky question. So thank you for asking, and always reach out if you need help with something, okay? All right. Thanks, Andrew. Bye.